Hi, and welcome to Warts and All Wellbeing. So we're continuing with looking at character strengths, and I'm really hoping that you went and did the character strengths survey via character.org, and you've got your 24 character strengths and you know what they are. And I'll be really interested to find out what your strengths are. I always think it's really fascinating when I have done training with people and they come back with their strengths. And for some people, they go, "Oh yeah, that's definitely me." And other people are like, "Well, yeah, I'm not really sure." And then their colleagues have been like, "Are you joking? I can so see you do that." One of the things around strengths is because it's stuff that comes naturally to us, we just assume that everybody has it and that everybody does it. So we just kind of like, well, surely that's not a big deal because everybody is honest. And it's like, well, it's not that everyone's not honest, but maybe it's not something that comes as naturally or is as important. So VIA from the Character Strengths organization used to stand for Values in Action. So the idea behind it is that we have all 24 of those strengths. So on your list, all 24 of them are there. It's just that the ones at the top are the ones that you use the most. They're the easiest to use. They're the ones that you kind of just fall back on really, really naturally and easily. Then you've got your middle strengths in the middle there, the ones that you kind of use kind of fairly frequently, but not all that often. And then the very bottom ones are not weaknesses, but they are just strengths that you still have because all human beings have all of these strengths. It's just that you don't use them very often. So a classic example for me, ones in the bottom would be, surprise, surprise, self-regulation. And as much as I'd like to be able to say, oh, well, I don't have any self-regulation, that's what my strengths profile said. The fact is I do have self-regulation, but it's not something that comes as naturally to me as some of my other strengths. So the trick now that we've got this list, is to have a look through them and to see whether or not they resonate with you. And there are lots of different ways you can find out your strengths. One of the ones is the survey, if you've done that. If not, another way can be to ask family and friends what it is they see in you. And that can be really useful, that they spot things that you don't, because you just assume that everybody does that, or you don't think it's anything special because it's something that's so natural to you. So that can be another way. Another way that you can do it is to have a look through the definitions. And actually, I'd recommend you do that anyway, because some of the definitions that the VIA Character Org have given are not necessarily definitions that you would use yourself. So it's always worth looking. A classic example is judgment. So when you look at judgment, if that's one of the character strengths you've got, you might be thinking, well, I don't really like the idea of that because it sounds like I'm judging people. But when you actually unpack it, what they mean by judgment is critical thinking. Able to make quick judgments because you're able to think critically. Another example of that could also be around creativity. So someone who has got creativity really high could be like, well, I can't paint or draw. But again, if you look at the definition, it actually is talking about the idea of thinking outside the box. So being able to problem solve and stuff like that. So it's really worth diving in and looking at the definitions to check. And sometimes there might be a word that you prefer. So for example, if you don't like the word judgment, and that's one there, you prefer critical thinking, then substitute that word when you're thinking about your strengths. So you've got your 24, you've got your top strengths, you've got your middle strengths, you've got your lesser strengths. And what the research says is when we know, particularly those top five or six strengths, when we know what they are and we're conscious of them and we're using them a lot, then our well-being is highly correlated with our well-being. So the more I use my top strengths, the more well-being that I have, the more like me I feel on my best days. So the challenge then becomes, and the well-being strategy for today is, have a look at your strengths, maybe go and check in with some people that know you really well, show them the list, see if they agree or disagree, see if they can find an example of when they've seen you use that strength, or you can even think of it for yourself. Is there a time when you know that you've used that strength? And maybe over the next couple of days, be conscious of that. So, if you've got a strength, for example, social intelligence, Andrew's got social intelligence as something really high. It's something that he uses a lot. So it's really easy for me as his wife to spot when he's using that. And it's really easy for him to notice when he's using it too. And so the challenge, this well-being challenge for today, is once you've got your strengths, your top 5 or 6, is to see if you can get into the habit of noticing when you're using them. Because a lot of the things that we've talked about with all this Warts and All Wellbeing is that none of it's rocket science. A lot of it is just being aware, and raising your awareness of when you use your strengths helps you to then find opportunities to use your strengths at other times. So that's it in a nutshell. You've got your 24. See if you can notice yourself using them over the next 2 or 3 days. What is it that you're doing? When is it that you're using them? And then maybe even in the chat box again, just make a comment about when you've used a strength or when you've spotted yourself using it over the next couple of days. All right, hope that's been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you for the next one around strengths.